I read news every day. News that's informative, but rarely encouraging. The Intermountain Christian newspaper aims to change that. They present the news you need to know, from what's going on in your community to your world, with encouraging words, motivation, and the resources you need to make positive changes in your life. What is your local government doing that you need to know about? What's happening in your community you need to be a part of? Whether it's a story from your neighborhood, a national story, or an encouraging word, you'll find biblical issues of everyday life in the Intermountain Christian newspaper. Intermountain Christian News is produced and supported by the work and donations of individuals and churches. You'll find it at churches, Christian bookstores, by subscription, and online at IMCNH08032016DineshDSouza. To find out more about supporting this local resource, go online at IMCNews.org or call Intermountain Christian News in Boise, Idaho at 208-703-8688. The Intermountain Christian News, a voice sharing the truth on matters dear to people's hearts.
Are you tired of the secular news? Do you want a Christian view of politics? Do you want to know what is going on in your Christian community? Your wait is over. Welcome to the Intermountain Christian News Hour. Here is your host, Dr. Anthony Harper.
I'm Dr. Anthony Harper with Intermountain Christian News Hour, making a difference, and so blessed today to have Mr. DineshDSouza, the producer of the new Hillary's America documentary movie, now out in major movie theaters nationwide. I want people to get more information about the movie by checking out the website, Hillary'sAmericaTheMovie.com. And I thank you, Mr. DeSouza, for joining me today on our program.
My pleasure. Good to be on the show.
Well, thank you. It's quite a hot movie, a documentary, which I have seen, by the way, 3 times. There's a lot of information there. I've got a couple questions for some of my friends about your movie. One friend, Anna Yemitz, and her dad, Alex Yemitz, really enjoyed your movie, and thank you so much for speaking the truth and educating us about the history of the Democratic and Republican Party. And from Anna Yemitz, her question to you is, do you know of any people who, as a result of reading your books or watching your movies or interacting with you in person, have actually switched over to more conservative way of thinking and were convinced?
Yes, I've seen people who come up to me from the theater and say, wow, I never knew this stuff. It's getting me to rethink my assumptions. I see that is also true from people responding on social media, in which they'll say, I used to be a Democrat, but wow, never again. And finally, we have actors in our movie. We hired actors in Dallas where we shot most of this movie. A bunch of them, most of them were actually minorities, Hispanics and blacks. And a number of them came up to me afterward, even during the shooting, and they were like, is this true? Is this true? Is it really? And the way you say, and I make startling claims in the movie. I mean, I'll say stuff like, in 1860, the year of the Civil War, no Republican owned slaves. All the slaves in the country were owned by Democrats. So these guys, these actors would say, how can you support that? And I'd be like, well, here it is. Here's the backup. Here's the documentation. Read my book. And so they, at the end of the day, I think many of those guys were blown away. And while I wouldn't say they've all signed up to be Republicans, what they say now is something like this. I'm not a Democrat. I'm not a Republican. I'm in the middle. I need to do my own research. This movie has really caused me to rethink my assumptions.
Okay, what a stark contrast in their attitudes before and after. And I would say, for another question, or has the only response that you've dealt with from the left been incredible hostility and arguing?
Yeah, if you look at the reviews on the movie, there's a site called Rotten Tomatoes, and the critics give us like 4%, and the audience gives us 80%. Audience loves the movie. Critics hate the movie. Now, these critics are left-wingers. They're progressives. And in some ways, I take relish in the fact that they hate the movie, because I know why they hate the movie. They hate the movie because it goes against their entire worldview. These are people who believe that the party of slavery and segregation and Jim Crow, the party that opposed the civil rights movement, must have been the Republican Party. But the reason they believe that is because they're idiots. They don't know anything. The truth of it is that that's the actual history of the Democratic Party. So when you tell them, it's kind of like telling them that the black is white or that pigs can fly. And so they're completely discombobulated, but rather than re-examining their assumptions or doing their own research, these are people who just get angry. They start banging their head against the desk, and then they get on their computers and write these hostile but fundamentally ignorant reviews. They can't challenge a single fact in the movie. So what they just say, they just use big words. Dinesh is delusional, he's paranoid, he's doing agitprop, blah, blah, blah. But it's all empty rhetoric. At the end of the day, they've got nothing.
I'm Dr. Anthony Harper here with the Intermountain Christian News Hour, wanting to share the gospel message with you. It is clear that you hear the message and respond as soon as possible. In John 3:16, it says, "For God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, that whosoever would believe in him would not perish, but have everlasting life." Please humble yourself today and admit your sins and ask Jesus to forgive you of your sins and be your Savior today before it's too late. If you died today without Jesus, you would be lost forever in hell, which does exist, contrary to what you've heard from Oprah Winfrey and so many others. Please respond today. To learn more about having a relationship with Jesus, you can check out our website, IMCNH08032016DineshDSouza, and at the top left of our website, you'll see a Who is Jesus banner ad, so you can click on that for more information. Also, you can call 24/7, this toll-free number, 1-888-NEED-HIM. And there's also a website, www.needhim.org. Once again, that 24/7 telephone number, toll-free, 1-888-NEED-HIM.
Are you tired of the secular news? Do you want a Christian view of politics? Do you want to know what is going on in your Christian community? Your wait is over. Welcome to the Intermountain Christian News Hour. Here is your host, Dr. Anthony Harper.
You mentioned the word idiots. In your documentary, I heard the term useful idiots. What is that all about?
Well, useful idiots, I think, was a phrase used by Lenin, which basically referred to the fact that political groups can find people who are going to do service for them, even though they're contributing to something very bad. I mean, think, for example, of the media, the way in which the mainstream media does work of covering up the crimes of the Clintons, refusing to report harmful facts. Look, they're trying to ignore our movie. Our movie is the biggest political film in the country. But if you watch CNN or the networks or NPR News, you'd never know it even exists. Their whole idea is leave it alone and let's hope people, don't go see it. Let's pretend that there isn't a movie called Hillary's America in 1,000 theaters across the country. This is how these people operate. They are useful idiots. So the term was invented by Lenin, but very applicable and relevant today.
And it kind of goes along with your response was, I think, what we really applied to my other friend, Eric Garcia's question about whether you believe that the media like NPR and TV news are biased towards Hillary Clinton winning and Donald Trump losing.
Yeah, bias is too mild a word. They're actually in the Hillary camp. These people are not even really journalists. They go around using the journalistic title. But a journalist is someone who's intellectually curious, is open to information, has a certain basic sense of decency and fairness, recognizes that we have two parties in America, and this is an election, and the American people should be deciding for themselves. This is not how these reporters think at all. They think, okay, what can we do to put Hillary over the top? They've been covering for Obama for 8 years. And when I was researching my earlier film, in 2016, Obama's America, I went to Hawaii, I went to Indonesia, I went to Kenya, I went to the Obama family homestead, I interviewed his brother in the slums of Nairobi. And when I was down in Kenya, I'm like, who's been down here? Has Time Magazine been down here? CNN, CBS? And they're like, oh no, we've never seen any of those guys. You're the first guy to come down here. So here's Obama, one of the biggest stories in the world, and the mainstream media is just not covering it because they're covering for Obama.
Well, as a White House news reporter, I've been there in person to see that preference given for the current administration, the Democratic Party, and if a person has been fed a lie enough, they might even think that any attempt to discredit is just all propaganda.
Well, what's been striking to me is to see the way in which academia has been complicit in this kind of progressive cover-up. When I was researching the movie, I learned all kinds of new stuff, and some of it's not even in the movie. It's in my accompanying book called Hillary's America. For example, the Democratic Party was, a good bit of it, in bed with fascism and even Nazism in the 1930s. young JFK went to Nazi Germany in the 30s, and he came back effusive with praise of Hitler. Hitler's a great guy. He called him a legend. And he goes, there are people who don't like Hitler, but most of them are just jealous of him. And if Hitler proclaims that the Nordic people are superior, that's because they probably are. This is JFK. FDR, the great progressive hero, was an admirer of Mussolini. And this was a mutual admiration society. Mussolini reviews FDR's book in an Italian magazine, and he goes, FDR is one of us. He's a fascist. Now, after World War II, all of this became super embarrassing, and the progressive historians went, oh, gee, well, we don't really want this in the textbooks. We don't want young people to be getting these ideas about our great progressive icons, JFK and FDR. Let's just conveniently leave it out. So, I report stuff in my movies and books that are the documented, incontestable facts of history, but they're facts that progressives don't like, and so you don't find them in a lot of our textbooks.
Okay, and I think there's another question is in some ways related to the previous question from Eric Garcia, was that the question, are media really giving unbiased opinions about the candidates today?
Well, I don't think that we're asking people to give unbiased opinions, because it's not really possible for someone to be unbiased in the sort of technical or full sense of the term. What we're asking for is a certain basic human sense of fairness, a sense of openness to different points of view. I mean, if you look at my movies, I did the movie America a couple of years ago. I begin the movie by laying out the case against America. I allow radical leftists to speak. I let them speak in their own words. They make the case that America did this, America did that, and then I answer them. But I'm giving them a hearing. By contrast, go to the films of this guy, Michael Moore, this left-wing filmmaker, and his films are intellectually rubbish. They're a nullity. Why? Because they don't even consider the opposition to be legitimate. He wants to attack the Second Amendment, but he'll never put an intelligent defender of the Second Amendment in his movie. So this is what I mean. We're not looking for perfect, lack of bias. I mean, I'm biased. I have a point of view, but I have a point of view that's open to revision based upon new information or evidence. I'm willing to listen to the other side. Those are the characteristics that you do see in my movies, but you don't see in the mainstream media.
Okay. It's good to know that difference. And, like you said, basically everyone has some bias, but some are more really open to learning and giving another view, or allowing another view to be heard. And I think in addition, I have another question here from Barry Shaw. He's in Israel. And Barry's had many of his friends in Israel asking about your movie. He wants to know how Hillary's America can be screened in Israel.
I don't know the answer to that. The movie is in the theaters in America now, and it will be through September. In October, it comes out in DVD or home box office, and so the best way for it to be screened in Israel would be to wait for it to come out in DVD, and then for people can buy it and download it any way they want.
Okay, so it's not being shown in any other countries in the U.S.
Right. It's currently being shown only in America.
Okay. Then I have a couple questions for you. What has been the response from the Hillary Clinton campaign, the White House, or Democratic Party to your Hillary's America movie?
Well, we haven't had any. It would be delicious to have. I was actually at the Democratic National Convention very recently, and funnily enough, they put up a propaganda video for Hillary, and it was actually called Hillary's America, the same title as our movie. So I had sort of this fantasy that when they put that up, the video, our trailer or our movie would actually start to play. And if that happened at the Democratic Convention, you'd have to have ambulances outside with people running for the exits. It would actually be delicious to watch. But no, unfortunately, that's simply a dream. It didn't actually happen. The Democrats are trying to hope that this movie goes away. But I think that the Trump campaign and the RNC and the super PACs have the ability to take this movie, and when it comes out in DVD, to drop the DVD in the mailbox of swing voters around the country, millions of them. And this could have a dramatic effect in getting people to re-examine their assumptions, really know facts, learn facts that they don't know about American political history and about the Clintons. And so we'll see if that happens.
Okay. Speaking about the Republican National Convention, I had read about Dr. Ben Carson, and he made a statement about a community organizer, Saul Alinsky, and in the preface of his book, which I've read, Rules for Radicals, there's some mention about Lucifer, the greatest rebel of all, and Dr. Carson brought that up, and I was astonished that he'd make that statement. And is there basis in fact regarding his comment?
Yeah, Alinsky dedicated that book in part. One of the people he dedicated to was Lucifer, or Satan, remarkable. Now, there's a lot of emphasis among Christians and conservatives on the radical side of Alinsky, and that is an important side of him. But there's also I would call it the gangster Alinsky. Alinsky, who began as a petty thief on the streets of Chicago, then developed robbery schemes when he was at the University of Chicago to steal from the university. And then later he gets in with all these criminal gangs, including the Al Capone gang, where he becomes friends with the number 2 guy in the gang, Frank Nitti, the so-called enforcer for Capone. And Alinsky admires the extortionist tactics of the mob. The only downside, he says, is that mobsters sometimes get knocked off. And then Alinsky goes, I tried to learn how I could apply those same lessons to politics. So basically, Alinsky became an extortionist. And it's remarkable to think that the current president, Obama, and the aspiring next president, Hillary, have tutored at the feet of this acknowledged gangster and thief.
It is quite shocking to think about. And, I think another very, very important question, and I was brought out in your movie, the main difference between the Democratic Party and the Republican Party. So what is the difference between the Democratic and Republican Party regarding race issues and affirmative action?
Well, the Democratic Party, to sum it up, has been the party of subjugation, exploitation, slavery, segregation, forced sterilization, theft, and murder. This is its actual historical legacy, and it's indisputable. It's not like this is something where this is Dinesh's point of view and there's a rival. There is no rival point of view. There was only one party defending slavery, the Democratic Party, and there was one party opposing slavery, the Republican Party. The Republican Party fought segregation. It fought lynching. The Republican Party has actually been the party of emancipation in this country. It's a glorious history. Even the civil rights movement of the 1960s, more Republicans proportionally voted for the Civil Rights Act of 1964, the Voting Rights Act of 65, the Fair Housing Bill of 68, than Democrats did. If the Democrats were the only party in America, no Republicans, none of those bills would have passed. None of them would have become law. So this is, again, these are actually indisputable facts. One of the reasons that the left is so thrashing around about this movie is that they know that none of these facts can even be shaken. And so that's why they're pouring all this invective at me. But it's going nowhere because facts are facts. People are entitled to their own opinions, but they're not entitled to their own facts.
Yeah, I had heard your comments with Megyn Kelly on Fox News regarding the affirmative action issue, which we know that the Democratic Party has been saying that they're the ones that have really supported affirmative action support for blacks rather than the Republican Party.
Well, the Democratic Party was the party of giving racial preferences to whites for many decades, and now they're giving racial preferences for blacks. Both policies are motivated completely cynically. They were giving affirmative action to whites to establish the Democratic Party as the party of white supremacy in the South. The reason that they're giving preferences to blacks essentially is not because of black uplift, but essentially to make blacks beholden to the Democratic Party. Same reason that they maintain these urban plantations in Detroit and Oakland and Chicago. They have these dependent populations, and they claim to be getting them out of poverty, but they never get them out of poverty. These people have been in poverty for 50 years, and they're in the same miserable condition now that they were in 1968. The reason the Democrats don't mind this is because what they want out of these people are their votes. They don't care about actually making them better off. If they made them better off, these people would but dust themselves off and walk off, and they wouldn't need the Democratic Party. Yep,
I understand that's very serious issues, and I think a couple other questions that are very important. What are the most important things you see at risk in this upcoming presidential election?
Well, I think what's at risk, and I may have to run after this, I'm sorry to say, but the main thing I see at stake is the American dream itself. And the American dream is a dream of upward mobility, of the guy at the bottom being able to climb a ladder of opportunity and better his own life. And that's a dream that I came to America. I'm an immigrant. I grew up in Mumbai, India. I came to America for this dream. And I've actually seen the American dream play out in my own life and the life of many others. But I think this American dream is imperiled, it's fragile, it's being subverted by the Democrats, it's been subverted under Obama, the Clintons, I think maybe even worse than Obama. And so I'm fighting to protect the America that has meant so much in my own life.
Well, I thank you, Mr. D'Souza, for getting the truth out about the issue, the difference between the Democratic and Republican Party.
Well, if you let me say so, Hillary's America, the movie.com, that's the website. You can watch a trailer. You can plug in your zip code. It'll tell you where the movie is playing near you. And then look for the accompanying book of the same title, which is in Costco, it's in Amazon, it's Barnes & Noble, it's in bookstores everywhere.
Well, it is a blessing to have you join me again today. And so I sure wish you the best. And thank you for sharing these very important issues and talking about that.
I appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
I'm Dr. Anthony Harper here with the Intermountain Christian News Hour, an outreach of the Intermountain Christian newspaper making a difference. And we need your support of good news. Check out our website at IMCNH08032016DineshDSouza, where you can download our newspaper and make your tax-deductible donation to support our voice, our Christian concerns at the White House and in Israel and other places. Do go online to make your donation and to support this important news ministry, the only evangelical Christian newspaper of its kind, a grassroots newspaper in our Intermountain regions, spanning from Colorado over to Reno, Nevada. And we currently have needs to cover our travel expenses for White House and Israel trips. And also, we need a donated minivan, a vehicle, a good condition, low mileage, air conditioning, and automatic transmission for delivery of our newspapers and other news events that we go to cover, representing Christian concerns. So please make your donation, tax deductible, online at imcnews.org, just by clicking on the donate banner ad that you see there. Thank you for your support of our good newspaper and for your prayers, most importantly, that we can continue to be a voice of truth for Christians in our Intermountain region, for the glory of God.
We read news every day. News that's informative, but rarely encouraging. The Intermountain Christian newspaper aims to change that. They present the news you need to know, from what's going on in your community to your world, with encouraging words, motivation, and the resources you need to make positive changes in your life. What is your local government doing that you need to know about? What's happening in your community you need to be a part of? Whether it's a story from your neighborhood, a national story, or an encouraging word, you'll find biblical issues of everyday life in the Intermountain Christian newspaper. Intermountain Christian News is produced and supported by the work and donations of individuals and churches. You'll find it at churches, Christian bookstores, by subscription, and online at imcnews.org. To find out more about supporting this local resource, go online at imcnews.org or call Intermountain Christian News in Boise, Idaho at 208-703-8688. The Intermountain Christian News, a voice sharing the truth on matters dear to people's hearts.